Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambert Weber, and I have the great honor to be today with the distinguished author and scientist, Richard A. Dunn. Welcome, Richard.
Junior. On the
Junior.
end there, please.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Now, Richard has written a book that we'll be discussing today. He's a man and a person, as we say, of many parts, and very aware of our human reality as a multidimensional reality from our conversations, and of the human being as a multidimensional entity. But we'll be discussing his book, which is a free book, and we'll put the link to the free book, which you can download, in the video description to this interview and also in the article that accompanies it. The title of the book is Demand for Title of Earth and Adjudication: The Way to Stop Earth's Destruction. And in the course of our conversations to prepare for this interview, I was really amazed because there are many parallels, not exactly, but with the first book that I published in 1974, The Age of Cataclysm, which drew on the Edgar Cayce prophecies of an axis shift of the Earth. And I'll start with one of the first paragraphs in this book. This is a declaration for a write-in presidential run for 2020, as the major candidates are legal frauds, as demonstrated herein, and a write-in is allowed in a number of state statutes outside of the party system. And this is truly a multi-dimensional work, and I recommend that you read it. So for some reason, Richard has dropped off, so we're going to pause recording till he returns.
I did not just faded out.
Yeah, Richard, you're back. So we've resumed we've resumed recording, and we gave that brief introduction. You didn't miss anything. So over to you. What essential message did you want to bring in this book? I know it's a complex book and we have plenty of time to go over it. We have at least 2 hours, if not more. And why are you, as you say, you start out at the beginning of the book. This is the declaration for a write-in presidential run for 2020, as the major candidates are legal frauds, as demonstrated herein, and a write-in is allowed in a number of state statutes. So over to you.
Okay, when I started this, I was considering a write-in. Then what I came to realize is none of them are sovereign. They were never sovereign. This is a pirate nation, and it's not only this, it's the whole world. And what this initial whole story starts about 450,000 years ago. And it starts with Nibiru. And there's 2 books that are involved that are key to this whole situation. And I can also bring it up in the same thing in going back to Robert Bruce I of Scotland and the Masons. I can do this at multiple levels. Everybody thinks there's always a poor world, that this was nothing, that the Anunnaki created us. The Anunnaki are pirates and mercs. They're soldiers of fortune. They came here as criminals to steal gold. This was the richest world in this universe, most likely, or at least in this region. We came here as judges, kings, and teachers. We were the founders of 3 universes, and we were the gods. The Anunnaki lived on a planet that was a ghetto. They were nothing. Originally, there were 3 universes, but in the very beginning, there was only one. When I started looking at this, I came to realize all the original races, and there were 3. First one were the Caucasians, and they were the teachers, the kings, and the judges. And they were on their home world, and what happened was, it was agreed as the 3 universes were created, there was nothing in them. They were created as matrices with nothing to hang in them. The first group came from Dunn, which is originally the oldest, came from previous universes to teach the newcomers. The newcomers were 2 races. One was the reptilians, the other was the felines. One of them, what happened was, there was a question, okay, the Anunnaki talk about the Lord of the Air and the Lord of Earth, which basically what it is air power and ground power, meaning everything to run a planet. And they were servants of the Caucasians, but they were also being taught. But they had to be trusted, and they weren't trustworthy. They decided that they didn't want to do the job of learning. And what happened was, on the planet Nibiru, and you can find this in the lost books of Enki, these people were so perverse, sick, that their mother killed them all. First, the father did. There's a gentleman whose original name was Ea, which became Lucifer. And what happened was, he found out his father was thinking of killing him, so he paid him a visit, got him drunk, and killed him. The mother took exception of this and went to war against all her own children. This is found in a book called the Numera Elis, E-L-I-S. It is the Babylonian book of creation, which is much copied from the original Hindu works. It is also tied, it also goes into the book of curses of all their enemies, including their own mother. So these people killed both their mother and father. This is the basis of the Anunnaki's beginnings as we know it today. And this is the heritage of the economic system and the people who are in control of this planet. And none of it is pretty. Self-identified, having talked to them, because of who I am, I got in close enough to do it, which I'll explain that later. They have claimed that they have been killing planets like this one that have crossed the void to run into the Milky Way for 65 billion years. I know it's older than the area of space. that we're in here right now. I get it. But they've been doing it that long. Self-identified. The Queen of England, through the Dragon Court, which is the kings and princes of this world, decided, according to Enki, which these people live 1.5 billion years plus. And how they do it is by life extension drugs, which they take bodies, which is androchrome and all that good stuff, which is terrible, and torturing them to get their adrenaline up there so that it's just unbelievable. But anyways, they do this with that, and they're a combination of what you would call cyborg and clones and drones on a, what do you want to call it, a network where they have nodes that are replaceable, which are essentially many times, and this isn't against all of them, but a lot of these people were designed, modified by Yahweh at Petra, where they started mating the Neanderthals, and they turned them into illegal genetic experiments using human DNA as well for docking stations of souls of reptilians and assorted and Anunnaki, etc. This is real. This is not a joke. I am not making this up. This is the reality. I know some of these people, some get a kick out of, okay, they can dock with one of these other creatures and they look like they're human. They can, okay, I've actually managed, based on consent, to tell people how to avoid some of them docking, and it killed Enki at one point, but he transferred into another body eventually. And the person, it's kind of crazy, but he actually flew into their reproductive organs without going into detail and changed forms. Because what the Anunnaki are is they're a combination. Okay, these guys were fighting with each other from before, and they're a combination of a reptilian and a feline, and they can't get together without having the human DNA in the middle to hold it together. Like I said, this is real. They use it as a manner of infiltration in just about all your leadership or those that want to be in the game, which if I had sold out, they have something called the Brill, okay, which I've actually met. And basically they wanted to mate with me because that would give them control of the planet because of my family heritage. The original people on this world, which this was Snow White, I have to tell you that, if anybody has a problem with that, the original reptilians, as in the white dragon, which is the lead of all the dragons, they were white. The felines more the same. They mark their territory as to who they've conquered based on color. That's why some people, that's why they're not interested in races they've already conquered and picking them up with UFOs. You see the depth of the knowledge? This is real. This is not a joke. Anyways, so what I figured out was, okay, the book of curses, which a lot of them are placed into our religious texts, which frankly, they wrote indirectly. And I can explain that another time. Because since I wrote this book, I've done a lot more. A lot more. There's no way you can cover the body of material. There's no way that I have. Impossible in the hours that you have. No way. And it keeps expanding. And part of the reason was the book that you are looking at right now is not a regular book. It is a case book. One night I'm in a bar in the middle of a divorce, and a man walks in and he's saying, "We always lose, we always lose, we always lose." Another man walks in, starts saying the same thing. "What are we doing wrong?" My jaw hits the floor when he says the following. He starts talking about them being in an off-world court. I saw the movie Jupiter Ascending. It's real. I ended up following the protocol that's in the movie as to getting into the off-world court. And the book that you're looking at is the result and has been placed in the stairway to heaven. If you notice on the bottom of every page, everything I do, it says the following. 3 times written, read, and burned, the stairway to heaven, the law of source and man. The stairway to heaven is the 3 times written, read, and burned. When you take and you write something, it goes from the brain to the hand and becomes reality by the hand. When you read it, it becomes the voice. From the brain, from the paper to the brain to the voice. And what do they tell you? God, the voice. When you burn it, it becomes ionized and it enters into the electromagnetic spectrum in that way. And that way, 3 times, it is looked at and it is monitored. And the more people, okay, what happened a couple of days ago, something amazing happened. A friend of mine took, and they called it the Richard Dunn protocol. Because what I did was I put on the stairway what would happen to them and everything else around. And I created a logic trap for them. And I rewrote since then what the law is, because nobody ever dreamed that these idiots would come along and do what they did. This was supposed to be a friendly environment. This was never supposed to be what this has become, ever. But anyways, back to the book of curses, that part of it is important. What I came to realize was these entities were writing a book of curses before they ever came to Earth. So we existed before the Anunnaki ever decided to make a human being. And the only ones they actually made were what is referred to as the Adamics, which are the O negatives, which are the docking stations so they could infiltrate, which is totally illegal. So when I was in front of, I got called into the court, which was the Milky Way court. And what I realized a couple of years ago, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, decided that they would look at the path of our world. And they came up with something called the Sagittarius Minora, which is we are part of a dwarf galaxy of about 150 stars that crossed the void, and we were never part of the Milky Way. We collided with them, and anything that collides with them, they assume that it's theirs and they destroy it. And this is how they make their living. It's a job shop of, well, the simplest thing to compare it to is a car shop, what do you call it, chop shop. They sell everything, DNA, everything. And we were the prize for the simple reason we were the world of the gods. So they had to fool us into thinking that they were the gods and not the other way around. And therefore they could assume us and we wouldn't fight it because they are the gods. It turns out the Mesopotamian gods are the Egyptian gods, are the Babylonian gods by different names. And some of them die and some of them are assumed. As a matter of fact, if you look at Allah, right? Allah in Petra was a minor god under Dashur. Interesting? It's even better. You know, the Muslims, they have a little problem. Which God? Okay, everybody's looking for the 28 footers. It's in the Quran. You know, the 28 foot tall guys? Allah came in, and he's supposed to be, according to the Quran, he's the Lord of the star system Sirius. His claim to fame in the Quran is that he beat up on 6 nations, one of which was the Odd. There's another one, I can't think of the name of it, for 12 footers. Okay? Now, up until he beat up on them, which these guys are 28 foot tall, so they got a big sword, and they're pushing the humans in front of them. All right? So they made them pay. They made all these boys pay, taking out the humans and taking out the 28 footers, the Odd, AAD. Because of that, he's been punishing them forevermore, having the girls chopped up and having the boys chopped up, you know, foreskin and all that stuff. He's angry because he cost them that much. So what it is Allah is not a god. And he has to lose his tax status. He's a warlord of another solar system. That is not a tax status, that is an invader. Interesting? I have more of this. This is not exclusive. Baal, Sin, okay, Barbara Bush and what do you call it? Dubai are the ones that made the Arch of Baal. It was supposed to be all over the place. They consider, the Muslims considered that, they paid for it with Barbara Bush. Are you smiling? To have that done because they consider it part of their cultural heritage. And the reason is because what they keep doing is changing the names. Allah is halal. What do you call it? They actually reverse the letters. Okay? And they keep changing it so people won't figure out who the heck they are. And that's the whole point. You're not supposed to know. Sin is another one. Okay, 12 or 24,000 years ago, Oppenheimer was talking about there being a nuclear war. There's only one place on the planet that exists, and that's in the Sinai Peninsula, and all the Muslim nations own a piece of it. And it was all blown to hell, and you can see it from satellite. These guys do not breathe air. What they breathe is they breathe methane. And this is important because I started tracing it throughout this solar system. And I found something fascinating, and it's in the book. I found the source of where it all comes from. There's 2 planets, or should I say, a satellite, but it's actually a planet, and I'll explain that later, called Titan. And the other one is Earth. And Titan is completely petrochemical, which is where we're moving to in our terraforming. I have to go back, okay, to what happened. There was a guy by the name of Lalu who was sitting out in Nibiru, And they keep trying to come over to Earth because Earth has gold, and gold is the nuclear trigger. And the only way these guys can keep warm in the dark is by blowing off nukes, and then they have to get rid of that pesky depleted uranium mess that they've created. Well, they didn't have any gold, so this guy's ruling for something like 300,000 years plus, and guess what happens? Everything starts dying because he can't get rid of it, so he needs to get gold. So he's kind of like Babyface Nelson. He goes where the gold is, or the money. He goes to, he goes to Earth. So Earth is such a poor place, right? Because of being the judges, the kings, and, the teachers of everybody, of the school of the universes, they have a little bit of gold. Okay, in the book, what do you call it? Anki, I'm sorry, what did happen? Lost Books of Anki. Okay, our guy Zichin is lying to you. He says Anunnaki means those from heaven to earth came. It's not what it says. What it says is Anu comes to Earth. He invades. But why? Anu has a fight with the guy by the name of Baloo. Basically castrates him. Eats whatever it is. I don't want to go there. Okay? Which is to spite the other guy. So this guy runs away, taking your basic everyday nuclear attack vessel with lots of nukes. And he heads to Earth, our solar system. But there's only 5 planets. But it has a thing called the golden necklace. The golden necklace is a Dyson sphere, and it's made out of solid gold. Hey, the gods have to have something. So the guy's desperate because he has no place to go, and he used to be the king, and Anu defeated him. So what is, and by the way, he's also the face on Mars. It's all in the book. You like it? So what happens is, in desperation, he comes up with a plan. He discovers the anvil and the hammer. He picks a point on, actually, it's not a Dyson sphere. It's basically, they only wanted to surround the paths of the major planets. Okay? So what happens is, it looks kind of, they call it the golden necklace because of this. It surrounds the sun and the first 5 planets, surrounds the sun and their paths of the planets. So what he does is, he says, okay, I got nothing left to lose. All I got some nukes. So the hammer and the anvil. He picks a point on the sphere. He hits it. Bam! 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 He blows his way through eventually. He daisy chains the nukes on the same spot. Nobody ever thought it would happen. He gets in. He shatters the thing, right? He gets whales on it until there's nothing left. Sets up shop, starts collecting the gold. He's happy, except he still doesn't have a place. So he sends his emissaries back to talk to Anu. Look what I did. They form a criminal consortium which includes the Watchers and all the other scum. What I did is I took the book, and what I did is I figured out why the Masons, which is what those 2 lawyers were, couldn't do anything in the court. And the reason was, they're in the court of the nobles. So I write the book, I put it on the stairway to heaven, and I figure out something in the process. In the movie, they talk about a recurrence. That is somebody that is noble that gets incarnated again with the exact replication of the original DNA. And they want to kill the bees because the bees are the stock out of which the humans come. And I am a recurrence of a royal on this world, and I had standing in the court. And what these bastards did is they went around, they killed all those that had standing, so nobody could go to the courts, and they bribed the courts. You see it? If you don't have standing, you're screwed. And I have standing. And what it is they know it. And you know, like, okay, you ever read Dan Brown's book, The Lost Symbol? He talks about the stairway to heaven. There's two sides to it. One's the good side, one's the bad side. I'm on the good side, they're on the bad side. What happened with, and you have to understand what happened with the Anunnaki, Enlil, Enki, and Anu, and their parents. They didn't want to learn. They wanted to do whatever the heck they wanted to do. In other words, they saw something they wanted to rape, pillage, plunder, whatever the heck they wanted to do. They just did it. And they're still doing the same thing today. That's why you have the world. They imported their, see, they became the job, okay. The divine right of kings is based on one thing. And if you actually look at what they're talking about in the Lost Books of Enki, they're actually proving it to you. They're supposed to keep the whole system running on the biosphere. Well, these guys can't keep anything running because they never learned, because they never wanted to learn. They want the power, but they didn't want to learn how the heck to keep everybody happy. And they didn't. So they had to become parasites. Fundamentally, they're parasites. And that's what the Queen of England is. She's a parasite. So what they do is she makes about 50% on everything she does, and she exports it off world, most of it. And that's what it's all about. The original contract was all that was supposed to be reinvested to all the people. That was the contract. And I know people who made it up high enough to be able to find that out. Interesting? So if you're standing, you have no way to get into the game. So the Masons couldn't get into the game because they didn't have standing. And what I did, when I found this out, I went to court. I walked in, they looked at me and they laughed, they snickered. They thought it was a joke. What are you gonna do? And then it started. In the end, they ended up offering me 90% of their people on two worlds. One is the second star of the, what do you call it? The Great Dipper. The other one is the second star of the Giraffe. The first one is the court of the nobles. The second one is the court of the commons. You can find them in the Chinese astronomy. You also have the purple or violet no-fly zone for the Orientals. It's very interesting. And by the way, everything I know says one other thing, and that is they are, I would guess, a clone army, because Microsoft couldn't get a read on them and got sued because guess what? Their facial recognition software can't work on them. How does that happen? Coincidentally, by the way. You see the crazy? Any comments? That isn't even the topic we're in for. Well, anyways, what happens is, am I too far afield? You wanted to know why I could hit them with these stuff that I just, oh, by the way, the Masons, right? Because of Robert Bruce, he started the Masons. They were assumed by, I'm sorry, yeah, he was the Scottish king. In a battle, he was looking at 30,000 English. And what happened is he ended up beating them. He was getting the rah-rah going for the boys, beating the drum for the war. And what happened was they got assumed eventually by the English, which became the York Rite. But the gentleman, which is the worshipful master of the Blue Lodge, okay, is a noble. And you can't be a noble if you want to play the United States game, because in the first degree, you have to swear yourself fealty to the gentleman that's the worshipful master, which now you're no longer an American citizen. So you don't have the right to be in any position of power in the United States because you're no longer an American. So that means just about everybody in the Congress and Senate of the United States, even if you want to play that game, has no right to be in those positions. Not to mention the cops and everybody else. And the lawyers, we don't even want to touch that. What do you want me to say? So how do you want to play it? You see the point? I can go on. It's not a joke, and I'm not laughing. And what it is the original, all of, in the Dragon Court, all of the, what do you call it? All of the nobles worldwide, they all count their name to one name. It's the Tuatha De Danann, which are the Irish, which is the reason they keep killing them left, right, and center every chance they can, because they're the original royals. My last name is Dunn. It's anglicized from the original name, Tuatha De Danann, which is the tribe of the gods, was what it translates into. And my name, I believe, is 450,000 years old for one reason. When you have supposed to have a empire, you don't change the name of the judge as to being a judge. We call it a judge for 450,000 years. My name in Sumerian means to judge. The family motto, going back to the last ice age in Ireland, County Meath, on the hill there, means the hill forever. No, that's the battle cry. The other one, it means on top forever, or rather always on top. What it is people who are kings because they're the people who originally set up the system. They know the most, and that's why they teach everybody else. And if you look at my patents, the different people who have looked at them, all the lawyers say one thing: they're divinely inspired. And what the enemy, well, I don't want to say enemy, well, actually they are, but anyways, what they say is they want to chase me through the FEMA camps to imprison me and work for Allah, which I call a pig, which I think is a nice way of saying it because they like that so much. Okay, they want me to work forever for these guys and being reincarnated every 20,000 years with a lifetime like that, so they can keep me going, doing whatever the heck they want as to the design work, because they can't do anything. And by the way, every time that they make a clone or a drone, or actually clones, they have to populate about 20 of them to get anything that's even close. So their engineering stinks because they never learned anything. And everything they touch is garbage. So they look at my work and they go, oh my God. They can't touch it. It's like every time I've ever crossed swords, Oxford, MIT, too bad, monkey. They don't have it. And I don't want to deal with it. It's not nice. If you want, I can tell you what I did with the patents is the supercomputers. And that's how I found out, which leads into our next topic, which is what we're really supposed to be talking about.
Right, right. So that
like
now
you're smiling like,
yeah,
pardon?
yeah. So that now that we've gotten up to Robert the Bruce, I'm here on page 12 of your book.
Right.
And at your website is interconnectednessofallthings.com. That's interconnectednessofallthings.com. And I'm just going to read this. Liquid natural gas, LNG, supertankers threaten humanity. LNG methane greenhouse gas 86 times worse than CO2, now melting unbalanced polar ice caps fall into oceans, sinking ships release methane, oil, and combustion products, a thin film spreads across oceans, surfaces killing aquatic life and stopping ocean production. These ships wait off of American coastlines, call to action. Each ship equals 50 Hiroshima nuclear devices, 3 to 4 megaton bombs, send them home, dismantle LNG supertankers. So could you walk us through that? And why is that almost at the beginning on page 12 of your book, Demand for Title of Earth and Adjudication, the Way Out to Stop Earth's Destruction? Over to you.
Let me say why it's at the beginning of the book. Nobody wants to read. So I figured I'd put a couple of highlights and things of interest in the very beginning in pretty pictures so that people would say, what the hell? I got to read this. Because if I did it any other way, guess what? Nobody reads anymore. So I had to put enough bite in there that you could, okay, seriously, people who have picked this up, right? And I'm going to tell you, when I tell you this, I swear to God, I'm not kidding. It's been read by international intelligence. Some people have read it up to 5 times. Still swear to God, they keep getting stuff out of it. It's incredibly dense. It really is. Okay, it's been read by people in the papacy. First Louis of the, what do you call that thing? The guy, the retired Pope there. That screwy looking thing. Anyways, sorry, my sense of humor. Okay, it's been read by Rothschilds. It's been read by Rockefellers. It's been read, and I swear to God, I'm not lying. They don't like it, and they don't like certain things I've done. And well, okay, can I tell you one of the reasons they really don't like it? Because under the court system, right, it goes to the top. And it's a multi-tiered system, the court system is, which I don't know if this is in the book or not, I can't remember. Anyways, the court system is based first on solar system, then it goes to galaxy, then it goes to universe, then it goes to multiverse, and then you pick up the dimensions. And that's how it works. And it's a hierarchy. All right. They are tied into groups, apparently, from what I can figure out, of about 13 is one of the numbers that they use on the galaxies, 9 and 13. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Okay. As to the numbers in clusters. All right. 3 is also popular. All right. But anyways, 13 has to do with time. 3 is like one of the basic numbers. See, our number system, okay, the Arabs gave us, and look, can I tell you something? Anything the Arabs give you is garbage. And our numbering system is garbage. It really is. It's junk. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's see. Okay, you're talking about, can you repeat it again? I'm sorry, I went afield. You wanted to know something else.
Yeah. Well, here we have an amazing proposition. You said, call to action.
Oh, about the LNGs. Okay,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I lived in around Boston, and I had a grandmother that was down in Weymouth next to the Quincy shipyard where they made the original LNG tankers. My uncle ran Hercules, which was the big crane that put them together for the most part. And the Boston Globe was publishing all sorts of articles as to whether or not these things should ever be made. Okay. And it was, okay, sometimes we'd get together and we'd talk about it, right? I mean, everybody was making money, so they did it because of the money. But the truth is, when one of these things blow, it comes off in waves like an onion. It's heavier than air, lighter than water. When it burns, it gets down to about 1 molecule thick. It spreads out completely across. It's like a pool table on the ocean. Okay, I forget how many of them. It's like 4 or 5 of them, I believe, will smother a major ocean. And if you have the earthquakes and the rest of the stuff that they keep doing, those ships are going to sink sooner or later. They have to be gotten off the oceans. And besides, the seeps as to what they've done with the HARP, okay, because they're generating enough methane. Every time they hit 6% of atmospheric, okay, they blow. The big bangs that everybody's wondering where they're coming from, they're coming out of the water. Okay, it's what do you call it? I think it's called methyl hydrate or something like that. I can't think of it. It's in the book. And what it is 38 degrees, I believe it is, if I remember right. The methane starts coming out of the ice where it formed way back when. And one of the things I noticed, a friend, he went right. Actually, he went left. I kept staying right. I mean, he went dark. Okay, and he noticed something as an overlay over the Arctic, which was basically looked like a double, like 2 triangles meeting in the middle, kind of like an hourglass. And I looked at it and I had the oh my God moment. And I realized that was an electromagnetic dipole from an antenna system. And what they were doing is they were broadcasting energy at the poles, and that's what's making the poles melt. And they were doing it over the Laptev Sea, which about 1,000 feet, I forget. No, it's not 1,000 feet. It goes out 1,000 miles, and I think it's a couple hundred miles. It's in the book in depth. So they've been defrosting all the methane under there, which is blowing through our atmosphere. In other words, they're wiping out our atmosphere. Okay, and they're doing the same thing with all our trees, our trees takes about 1 tree, if it's a good sized tree, can support maybe 2 to 3 people. But if they keep doing this, you're not going to be able to live on top. And that's why they're burrowing underground. And they're telling everybody they're going to survive, and they're lying to them. You're not. Because what they're going to do is people are going to want to end it to get out of it, because you can't breathe this stuff. And what they're going to leave you with is something that's absolutely unbreathable. And then they're going to move in and take possession. They want the planet for themselves. That's what it is. And if they can kill us off that way, they're good.
And who's they?
It's the consortium. Okay, there's all sorts of things that are living underneath us, down below. Okay. Some of them are human. Some of them are races that have been defeated from other planets or of the same genetic stock at one time or another, that are not, they don't necessarily look completely like us. Some are orange. They're all defeated races. If we keep going, we become just another defeated race. See, they don't fight their own wars directly. And what they do is they find the psychopaths that want to play war. Okay? And that's what your generals are. And what I want to do is no more war. Because the thing is, we're better off to get along. Other than that, they're going to wipe us all out. We don't really have a choice. To keep the integrity for the different planets, we have to put everybody on their separate planet based on their genetics. Because planets are bought, okay, they are specified, designed, stocked. Everything is per specification, including all the genetics. And they are done by people or entities, shall we say. And this is how they make their living. This is what they do. In other words, they talk about, what do you call it, elementals. Actually, after a fashion, they actually really do exist. And then that's what they're trying to hide, because as long as people think that, it's all a nebulous God and the rest of it, right? It's, okay, they can make like, okay, they're the cool kids and nobody else is because we're the ones that created you, when they're not the ones that created you at all. They had nothing to do with it. It was all done by teams. that wanted to learn the technologies, except some of them wanted to enslave instead of learn. And that's what happened. And that's what we're dealing with. And this is the economy you have today. And that's who these people are. And that's the Oval Office, that's all of them. And they don't come from here. Okay, let me ask you a question. One of my titles, right, is it was given to me, and it wasn't given me by people on this level, all right, is the keeper of the white cube of the perfect man of the white sun. Okay. Now, why is it when some people go to the Wailing Wall, they put a black cube on their forehead, and they're actually worshiping Saturn? Okay. And others have a cube of sorts that's sitting in a little town called Mecca, and that's also has to do with worshiping Saturn. And it's black because it's a dead sun. And that dead sun is Saturn. They don't come from here, but they control us economically, but they're not from here. They have no rights to anything on this world. Period. Nothing. They are a creation and modifications to some extent of the Anunnaki. And who claims to be Anunnaki is the Queen. And the Chinese, when they go to battle, always side with them because, again, they're not from here. The original races on this world were all white Celtics, and they were not Anglo-Saxon. Matter of fact, it's actually humorous. Druids get nailed for being cannibals. But if you ever read any of their literature, it's a very funny thing. They don't believe in eating animals or anything else. They're all vegetarians.
Well, let me ask
And
you.
what happens is that all gets, go ahead, if I may, that all gets introduced when the Saxons, which are the Saracens, come to town. You were saying, please.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Chinese, and I'm looking here on page. Well, it's hard to figure out what the page is, but it's China's Three Gorges Dam.
Yes.
The Three Gorges Dam changed the Earth's axis. It changed the axis of the crust in relation to the mantle. Every revolution grinds the underside of the crust and top of the mantle across the whole globe.
Yes, I wrote that.
Start a nuclear war, you have to know how to stop it before it starts. Nuclear war causes nuclear power plants to melt down. Dam causes earthquakes, volcanic activity, and global warming from the Earth's inside. So are you talking a possible axis shift here as well?
Yes, it has. If it continues to, well, it has to do that. And what it's doing is, okay, heat flows to cold. Cold doesn't flow to heat unless you have a heck of a lot of it. What I'm trying to say is us burning gasoline up top here is not causing the heating of below the crust. What they did is, if you look at the math and the rest of it, what I propose as to what the solution is, okay, 20 kilometers on average underneath our feet is something called the Moravec discontinuity. And this is important because basically what this thing is a huge quartz crystal that circumscribes the whole inside of the planet between the mantle and the crust. China, all right, what happened with me is I wanted to make money, and I decided the most expensive thing around was a $400 million supercomputer called the Milky Way 2. And what I discovered looking at that, it was only really designed to do one thing. And it was designed to model with a piece of software called Sysol in a brute force technique, the rupture of the crust, which is called a volcano, and the interplay between the individual tectonic plates throughout the whole, what do you call it, crust, as it sits on top of the mantle, actually on top of the moronic continuity. What I found out was these people knew exactly what they were doing. They went through computer after computer until they found out it wouldn't work for what they wanted to do. They never signed, the Chinese never signed the treaties in this regard for tectonic plate warfare. They published a book, which I read, which was Unrestricted Warfare, where they said it was okay to go against capitalist states without declaring war. And basically what you have here is an undeclared war against the world, where they get to keep it all. They started building cities at height because they knew, all right, I watch to see what the earthquakes are looking like across the world from time to time. And they keep going up. They've been going up for years. And what I did is I gave the main points as to when this whole thing started and how the heck it acted. And when the original shift is, it's all there in the book. And you'll find I traced the interaction of all the plates. And the biggest problem is, okay, where that dam is with the Yangtze River, there's a wave that comes out of that thing every day. And the wave is the height of the Empire State Building and goes across the South China Sea. But I want to go the other direction just for a second. There's a plate that goes all the way to Naples, one plate. Okay, and that plate is shaking the whole Middle East, and all the deaths and everything that's happening in terms of the earthquakes throughout the world at that point, going both directions, including the bubble underneath, United States, the park there, Yellowstone, is all the responsibility of the Chinese. What I'm saying is, we are going to turn this thing around where they're paying, we're not paying. And what I did too is, when I put this thing in the courts upstairs of heaven, if you want to call it that, I realized this is going back further. Okay. There was an incident where there was a object that hit the backside of the sun, sunspot 1112. Where they kept it off the records, but there was a Venus-sized strike and everybody figured it was over. And that was the beginning of my placing orders off-world for military action. And that's what really scares the hell out of them, because I can do military action that they can't do. The Pope can't do it, the President can't do it, the rest of them can't do it. They don't have the power, they don't have the authority. Ownership gives jurisdiction, gives authority, gives dominion, and it gives sovereignty. But if you think of it as, all sovereignty goes back to the source in the end analysis anyways. All right? But what it means is I order things and it happens. And they don't have a choice. Question is, sometimes you got to be careful, what you ask for. All right? It gets reviewed. But anyways, what happened is I called it in, and a friend of mine, I called around to see if somebody could go and communicate off-world to find. Actually, what I did is I hypothesized, this wasn't the first, you need this. I hypothesized that this was not the first major civilization. This was not the original civilization. There had been prior civilizations that had been, what do you call it? Trade off world. There had been agreements for trouble, including evacuation and all of it, all right? And based on that, I called around to find people who could communicate with off-worlders, okay? And what happened was there were 3 ships that came into the solar system. They laid the energy off across multiple dimensions. Other ships came in to refuel them. They operated off of Ganymede, I found out later. And from what I was told by somebody was tied to Sandia at the time, that they figured it was over and nobody could figure out what the hell happened. I've also interfered because of CERN reaching out to Saturn. And what I did is they were trying to get together to put in an invasion. So what I did is I sterilized Titan. I had it sterilized. You know that fleet of golden ships that came in? I did that. And what I did with, you know the Ringmakers of Saturn? You know, the book? Okay, they were throwing rocks around for the material handling for the mining of our solar system. I had them wiped out because they were playing games. And at one point during the, not the Carter, the Clinton administration, there were 3 different rocks of size that were thrown in our direction. One went by close, another one went by and threaded the needle between the Earth and the Moon. The third one skipped off our atmosphere. I realized this was like a rifleman ranging our planet. So I took care of it. They can't range anymore, at least for a while. It was a message. They wanted to send a message, I sent the message. And from what I was told after the fact by certain entities on this planet, that a certain group in the vicinity, well, let's just call it Israel, was using this to threaten this world. So I sent them a message. No, no more. Look, there's things in this world you do. Look, I do this because somebody has to do it. I scare the hell out of myself every day for the things that I do. I need help. I need teams to do stuff and the rest of it, but I do the best I can. I know what they're going to do. I can tell you some of it. They're going to heat it up until it's unbearable. They're going to cause an ice age. After they're going to cool it down, then they're going to heat it up. In other words, it's basically like breaking a coat hanger. You send it so far this way, you send it so far the other way. But in the end analysis, they want a methane world. They're lying to everybody, including the idiots that are working for them in the Congress and Senate. Oh, by the way, there's a methane leak in the Four Corners area. You can see, NASA can see it from space, and it's just chewing on our atmosphere. Like I said, every time it hits 6% of atmospheric, it takes another chunk out of our atmosphere. So if you want a demand to be sent to a FEMA camp because you can't breathe anymore, let them keep coming. That's where you're going. And by the way, if you don't think they can cool it down even more, I think it was George Bush Jr. in the, University of Florida, put up rockets with gold-plated mylar strips to cool it down even more by reflecting the sunlight from around the planet. Good times. You see the point? So they're going to make it as miserable as possible until everybody can't stand it by either freezing to death, etc. So they want to kill themselves. And what's going on right now is they're wiping out your food supply again, and they're going to keep doing it because you're not supposed to survive. And what they really would like is if we start eating each other, because the one thing you're not supposed to do is eat your own kind. I'm not making this up, and I'm not laughing. So the reason I'm doing this now with you is because it's got to stop.
Right. For example, I'm on page 52, paragraph 3. You say, it is probable this was the fate of Mars with nuclear wars and Venus with meltdowns of nuclear power plants. I claim these sister planets' losses and processing plants as part of the damages later herein. My knowledge of the situation dictates that the galactic and/or universe history should support it in the galactic record. I hereby ask that question: are we experiencing a standardized program of guided destruction like the Thurn of Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars? The answer is yes. So you've now documented the Three Gorges Dam. You've documented the LNG tankers. These are very specific causes for an axis shift, for a surface ecological catastrophe.
Can I throw another one in that isn't in the book?
Yeah.
Okay. You know graphene? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Graphene, you said?
Yes, graphene. Okay, graphene is carbon in hexagonal format, approximately 1 atom thick. Okay, there's a version of it which, if you dump it in a no matter, this stuff is a catalytic conversion to hydrogen and oxygen of water. If you put it in an ocean, unless you get the last piece, guess what? You got a problem. 24/7, 365 chewing on your ocean. Mars. Got it? No water. Government paid it. You understand the insanity of what I just said? You understand what that would do? In other words, ocean be gone. Poof. A day, a month, a year, it doesn't matter how much you want it, how fast you want it. That has to be a death penalty. And if I had my way, I'd torture the SOB until they're a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That might be a trade restriction. But you know what I mean. I'm not playing with anybody. This is not a game. I'm not laughing. This is why this is why I do what I do. You see it? I need to be able to get paid to do it is one of the problems, because I can't stop doing it. Quite frankly, it's part of the reason I have a problem. I'm divorced because they thought it was crazy. And now you're living the dream. It's a nightmare. And they're not going to stop unless I stop them. And somebody has to have the authority to stop them, and nobody else appears to have that authority. You see the problem?
Yes. Now, so what do you propose to do about this? Let's not get into the money and the support first. What do you propose to do about this?
Okay. I have to get this out to as many people as possible so they understand what's going on. What I have done off-world is I've put them into, receivership. Talking to them, I know, all right, they're having a hard time. The Anunnaki, the reptilians, and the rest of it, from what I've been told, are now hiding in a lot of places. I also did something else for them, which a lot of people don't like. If they're going to kill our children and need them, etc., in us, I put bounties on them. And I also put, they're to be sold as we are, as meat, which they don't, certain people don't like this, throughout the galaxy and beyond. If we have to worry about 5% of our population disappearing because these guys are hungry, guess what? I did the same for them. In other words, the other part of that is, if you read the book, you're going to find out that I put up bounty hunters. You'll find out how I was able to figure out how to pay for this in the off-world through the court systems and the rest of it. Everything I could think of, I made it miserable. Okay, you know Sun Tzu, The Art of War? There's been an 8-year war. What the other side is saying, the Anunnaki, the rest of it, I have turned it into, okay, how do I want to say this? I lit the galaxy on fire for this planet and others. The deal I had to take coming in here, I only wanted this world. But the deal I had to take, or I couldn't have it, it had to be done for all the other worlds affected. And it goes back, like I said, to the 65 billion years. And part of this, I came up with a legal theory for it that I used in the courts. And that is that the karma is prepaid based on what it is, and it is the ability to stop this that must be reckoned with, or otherwise they are part of the problem, and as part of the problem are prosecutable. And when I went after the Numera Elise to change the law, which these idiots put in place, because what they did is they called upon all the universes to deliver their energy to them to make everything happy for them, meaning the Anunnaki and the reptilians. Yeah, I know, it's in the, you have to read it, it's in the Numera Elise, E-L-I-S, N-U-M-E-R-A-E-L-I-S, 2 words. And by the way, they're the ones that wrote the Bible. And we know this because, what do you call it? Rome defeated Hannibal, okay? But they brought the girls in from, what the heck is it? The city they assaulted over in, I can't think of it, over in Africa, where they went in there. You know, I'm thinking of, I can't think of the name of the city. But anyways, they brought them in, they made them the witnesses in Rome. What could go wrong? That was with the Muslims, which are actually the predecessor of the Muslims, Paul and all that, but it's the same crew. Matter of fact, Genghis did the same thing. He let the generals intermarry with the Muslim women. Within one generation, guess what happened? Not Tibet, Mongolia took a left-hand turn. He would have been rolling in his never knew. They're dangerous as hell. Don't ever think that they're sweet little things. I'm not saying everybody should go out and do bad things. I'm just saying that don't think that this is simple. You see the point? This is not nice. And as a matter of fact, the kids I actually read a little bit about it in the book. This, we call Syria, the kids that were coming in. When I was a kid in high school, we were reading $25,000, right? That was the price to buy a bomber boy in Syria. And Syria was the place you went if you were the IRA, Irish Republican Army, or anybody in the Middle East. If you wanted that GP, or you wanted to get a bomber boy, or whatever the heck you wanted. So if you think these kids are innocent, they're running around and they can't be bought, $25,000, that was back then, would buy that kid to go blow himself up with whatever, a soldier, an American soldier. And they were training all the way across the Middle East, all the way into Asia. And that was one of the training spots for the Russians, for the Syrians in the Middle East, for the Arabs. So, that was part of my experience growing up. I remember, for some reason, I remember a lot of things. And this Congress and Senate, the things that they have done, No. Not just no, no. And the people who were in the press and the rest of it, no. You cannot allow this to continue on a governmental basis. Do you understand why I say that? This is suicide. But can I point out, one of the things that has to happen, all right, is, all right, DC, okay, was set up, all right, this country is Christian, which actually Christian is actually derivative of the Druid. Believe it or not, they stole it and tweaked it to what they wanted. The people who put together this country and put together the, what do you call it, the capital that we know today, put together a system on paper, on the ground, as to the buildings, which was basically a Luciferian structure. And that includes the White House, the whole damn thing, front to back, soup to nuts. And we have allowed them, thinking that they are benevolent and the rest of it, to have this structure and do all the good stuff that they have done. Look at the results. Look at it playing out right now. What could go wrong? When you turn a blind eye and you don't want to know because it ruffles your feathers, because it's inconvenient, because you want security over reality of your situation, and you let the crud creep up on you, and you get there and you wonder, gee, what happened? You're your own damn worst enemy, period. You are responsible for you, and the men of this country and the women of this country have to wake up. You're doing it to yourself, and you're dragging your children into a cesspool that they won't come out of. The kids are looking at us and they're going, what the? You fill in the blank. Pick one, anyone. It's not good. I always looked at my father's generation. I said, why the hell didn't you do something? I have fought. 1992, I was writing about the, what do you call it? The export of industry. And what the heck were they saying at the IEEE? The average lifetime for an American engineer graduating from college at that time, I happen to know, was 6 months. Trump talks about, what do you call it, taking it away from China. What does he do? He hands it to India. Okay? He hands it to India. He doesn't bring it back here and try to pay a living wage. He hands it to India. What's all that about? Okay, what I did with the supercomputers, Rothschilds, bankers, I was considered the retirement fund. People wanted to bring back people who had retired from Materials Handling Corporation that made all the chips and the machinery that made the chips because of what I did. Estimated value less ramping was 11 to 17 trillion. Trillion! Obama got a hold of it through the patent office and did everything he could to block. He assigned a lawyer who was a cretin. And I wrote in there as to my defenses, and he ran me out of money. How did I phrase it? I was swearing in legalese. What the heck was it? They were, what do you call it? Basically, they were not being responsible for the proper assignment of, what do you call it? materials and manpower. They were doing, let's see, failure to perform, lack of due diligence, oh God, malfeasance, misfeasance, or non-feasance, depending on which one it was, depending on what their position was. I mean, I slammed them. Made one mistake to put it as an affidavit. It was unbelievable. What happened was, what I invented, okay? Everybody was looking to make graphene for the simple reason graphene was determined to be 86% of the speed of light versus 32% of the speed of light for silicon. Well, everybody was figuring out how to make it. I had the patents on how to use it. My work is studied Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, all of them. Because guess what? They couldn't. That's why Rothschild was offering me $500 million, and they offered me 99% of my own company, and they keep 1%. But I realized that they could, the tail could wag the dog if you didn't do what they wanted. They wanted control of the sales, and whoever controls the sales controls the company. And I looked at them and I said, when somebody starts negotiating with you in bad faith, it never gets better. They told me to sit back down at the table, and I walked. The other reason what do you call it? They want all the different ones, including the people that put up, what do you call it? The transfer from Cray Research over to, I can't think of who picked it up. Anyways, as the supercomputers, I beat them. And the reason why is because I came up with a minimum path circuitry in 3D. If you want, I can tell you what it is in short terms. Up to you.
Now let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
You're saying that you really need a platform to sustain you in this work. Is it an occurrence or a reoccurrence? I want to get it correctly.
Okay, when you say a recurrence okay, when I used the word recurrence in the movie, I was talking about in the movie.
Yeah.
What a recurrence is.
Oh, okay. So no, but wait, stay with.
How you use the term, I had a very specific meaning to the term, and I don't want to confuse the two.
No. I understand. So you're saying that you are now functioning consciously as a recurrence, and with.
No, actually, what happened to me is when this whole thing started, I was supposed to be the one, according to them, and they want to do it again, some of them, that was in charge of this planet when they came in.
Yeah.
And what they did is they got me, I got rescued, but there wasn't much left. They tortured the crap out of me. They wanted to know what I did to counter them. And they made it ugly. Okay, they're very good at making things ugly. Okay, so basically they tortured me, all right? And because of this, everybody comes in here, took a mind wipe as part of the deal, and I had to take it too, which they gave me some of the worst people to be surrounded with, you would not believe. Anyways, God, I'm shaking. It's like, according to what they're telling me, there's two things about it. It's kind of crazy. The other side, every time they look at me, they try to look at me psychically to see what I'm made out of, right? And what they keep saying is, every time we look at you, you're somebody different. We can't figure it out. Or sometimes, okay, you're you, sometimes you are a little boy, sometimes a little girl, sometimes you're a old man, old woman, sometimes you're a woman, man, whatever, right? And then one of them finally figured it out. Part of the reason I get to know as much as I do on different things is because I actually work at it. But the other thing is they consider me like an oversoul. And by the way, there's one thing in the movie that I need to tell you about too. A perfect man that they're referring to, I found out what it is as to what it really means. I had to live everyone's life of the people who were under me as a part of me. Told you okay, source fraction itself to make individual, they're all assigned to somebody. And what it is they can come from one star system to another, but they're all originally to one particular star system or another, okay? And for this particular word, if all of you die, I probably die too. All right? But I am like what they're telling me is I'm like an oversoul. This is not me saying this, all right? And what it is I have the ability to pull on different expertises. And okay, I told you about one of my titles, you know, the keeper of the white cube of the perfect man of the, you know, white star, as opposed to the black star, which by the way is, okay, my nemesis would be the, most likely the Saudi king, because he's the keeper of the, okay. The black star is Saturn. So technically, oh, by the way, Nibiru, from what I understand at this time, is around Sirius, the Sirius star system. I believe it's Sirius 1. Okay. The Titan was one of their worlds that was with Nibiru. All right. Look, there have been cases where there was at least one NASA employee who pointed out that there was a planet that was going by at the edge of our solar system. All right. And by the way, they're not going to love me for this one. Back in the 80s, they started looking at solar, what do you call, planets off the ecliptic. And there's one that's out about 1.5 light years, which this is all now supposed to be classified, by the way. And what it is that I believe is one of their staging points if they were to invade. Okay, but just for giggles. All right, there's a number of them. I believe there's something like 7 or 8 of them, or maybe 9. I can't remember. It's been too many years since I read it. We'd actually made it into the major magazines, but it seems like they clean stuff up. You know what I mean? And by the way, one of the things I don't like doing a lot of times is I don't publish a lot of stuff, but now I find out I have to. All right, because of what happened with my friend putting the thing on the stairway regarding the Richard Dunn protocol of invasion. Because what I'm doing is I'm calling for an invasion. Because unless they want to step aside, we're not going to be able to beat them without an invasion. Because they own too many toys, and what they've done. All right, one of the reasons I didn't take the money on the patent, you might as well know. There was a woman, Houston, Rothschild, guy by the name of Edwards. They could probably get me into it. What the hell, it's the truth anyways. What are they going to do? Okay, they were offering me a percent or two of 3 blood diamonds in 3 nations for what I was doing. Okay. And Sri Lanka was one of them for what it is that we're talking about. And the reason was they wanted to use it for fire control for ordnance delivery. And because, okay, hexagons can be divided up into triangles, what I did is I made the paths parallel because, okay, 2 triangles, equilateral, okay, it's all based on equilateral triangles, and which 6 of those make a hexagon, right? They make parallel paths for failover. So technically, you could take this thing, all right, the way I designed it, and you could frag the hell out of it, and it would go until there's nothing left. In other words, it's got 2 design defects. It doesn't have a conscience, and it doesn't know when to quit. Okay? You want, I can tell you what the basic parameters are. Bottom line, what it does is it's the maximum highest density possible for any particular technology in 3D. Okay? With a minimum path for anything you build according to my design rules. Who would want that, right? Because time is distance, distance is time. So if you minimize the minimum path, you minimize the time, so you speed the thing up. what I did was, what I wanted to do with it, right, is it was designed for a faster than light ship, among other things. And one of the things I gave to a guy by the name of Pat Bailey was the operating frequencies of the UFO, which were published in 1978 as in a filler program for the, what do you call it? The football league that went on strike in that year. And I got him and I worked out the circuit. Look, you have to understand, my life is guided. Can you understand that?
Yes. Now let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
There are people watching here,
Right.
and to the level of all of our understandings and understandings, and those who would wish to assist you and support and send whatever form of support that you would need in your work,
Right.
what would that support look like? I mean, you have a website, you have a book. Now, how can people support you, and what would that look like, and what are you going to do?
Keep doing what I'm doing, except, okay, look, I don't want to invent for them. I want to invent for people.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I don't mind inventing, but I don't want them to have it, and I don't want to hand it to our
no, right. So what do you need?
doing that, but
Yeah. Look, many people in your position, what they do is that they put a donate button on their website, and
Right.
and that donate button leads to a GoFundMe, it leads to a Patreon, it leads to different programs, and then people say, this person really, this is amazing. I know that this is so multidimensional that it's amazing that I am going to support this because I've read this book, this Chinese Gorges Dam. It lines up with what Edgar Casey said about the axis shift. It lines up with what a lot of people are saying about the axis shift. The LNG tankers, it lines up. It lines up with what people are saying about the Act of 1871, about the United States, about the illegitimacy of the government there. It lines up with the reptilian nature of the matrix rulers. It lines up with what I know about the Anunnaki. I mean, everything that this gentleman has said, Richard Dunn, really lines up, and he seems to be speaking from an authentic source. That's what a person looking at you could really say. Now, so that one easy way to do this would be to put a donate button on your website.
I took your advice. I took your advice yesterday. I'm trying to figure out how okay, I did set up on GoFundMe. I asked for 5 million. Okay, the reason is, pardon?
Good. So
the one thing I don't know, could they give it to me in pieces? Because, okay, this is going to be an ongoing thing, because we're going to have to do this.
Yeah. Look, people can send dollars, they can send $5, they can send $10, they can, and so you have to be sure that after this, you're going to email me that link so I can put it in the description here,
right,
in the video description and in the article here, so that people see what we're trying to do is to ground this multi-dimensionality. This is what we're doing here, is that we're grounding it at a new level of grounding. And so I'm really glad, I'm really happy to hear this news that you're taking a step so that people, this is like an entry ramp so people can ramp into your work. So
can I tell you something seriously? I have a lot more, because one of the things I did when I realized what was going on with the Numera Elish, I went after the Numera Elish, which is the book of curses.
Again, I didn't understand that particular word and its context.
The Numera Elish is their book of curses and their book of their creation myth, the way they rewrote it. I went after this. Okay, I have what do you want to call it? A stack of addenda. Okay, here's what happened. These guys were playing with the timelines, and they were using it to steal the planet. So I had to stop that. And the key again, all goes back to the stairway to heaven. That's why the people who have read this thing call it the Richard Dunn Protocol, right?
Right.
But what it is it's actually an their protocol as to all the crud that they have laid out. Because what they did is they actually sat down and they wrote curses against all of humanity, okay? And they incorporated them into the Bible, there's a whole stack of them, okay? Matter of fact, my parents hit me with a couple of them. The curse of the bastard, what do you call it? The curse of the prodigal son. There's a lot of them, all right?
So
it's all designed.
Actually, what you're saying is that everything is backwards. And
yes,
and the Anunnaki wrote the Bible from the Book of Curses so that people who read the Bible with a sense of worship are actually getting cursed.
Yes, and what it is too is I'm not making yes, and I'm not making it up. It's evil. They're unbelievable. But you're told
it is evil. It is horribly evil, and as George Bush said, if people understood what we've done to them, they would draw and quarter us. And I think that
yes, but
humanity is starting to wake up to that, because I hear that sort of talk just about, people are starting to wake up to what the Anunnaki, those souls who are incarnate, in human bodies or are acting interdimensionally, and they're starting to wake up
right
to what they've done to us. And
what
say that the Anunnaki were responsible for religions, but when you take that a step further, as you've done, and you say, no, they took their book of curses, they wrote it into the Bible. So when you read the old...
It's not funny. I don't know why I'm laughing. Yes.
Yeah. Is it in the New Testament also, if you read the
I don't know, because I believe it is, but here's the funny thing about it. Okay, I ran into it, right? And I couldn't believe it. It was me, because the things, all right, the secret societies have the individuals going into the secret societies calling upon the universe to curse them, have their bowels ripped asunder, all these crazy curses. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And for their progeny reaching down to infinity, as long as they get what they want in their life. If you listen to the different ones, the high banking families and the rest of it, they are promised, and particularly Hollywood, it's unbelievable. These people are dumber than unbelievably dumb. What they're doing is they're trading a life, one, right, where they get everything that they want, for an infinity of hell.
That's stupid.
Literally. Yeah, but they're doing it. And who they're rewarding in the process, which they're blessing their captors. And they're actually these real things. Okay, you know what they really are? They're body snatchers. They're parasites, body snatchers, that they can eat your, they go in through the eyeball. I've actually met one, maybe two. I'm not joking. They got like a cyst thing on their eyeball, and it's usually the right eyeball. And the different ones that get punched in the eye in the Congress and the Senate, guess what? Exactly. It's them. Say hello. And you wonder why you have problems in the Congress and the Senate, because they're not who they appear to be. And they rewire the person's brain. And these things are dumber than dirt, but they learn. They have a stack of data which is not knowledge when they first assume the corpus delicti. Okay? They have a little probe in the top of the head that it knocks a hole in the eyeball, and it proceeds like a serum of some sort, dissolving. They say it tastes like butterscotch, believe it or not. Dissolving the neural nets, which they replaced with their own, and now they're you. For all intents and purposes, from the outside, you cannot tell the difference. And it's in the thing in their natural state. They have some kind of acidic basis, where if they spit on you, right, it melts the side of your head or whatever. I mean,
Wow.
you go in a silent scream. It's kind of like Alien, those things, except these things originally are a foot tall, and some of them are actually down under Denver Airport. Look, these guys exist. Okay, and by the way, I will tell you this for absolute, in case anything happens to me, I don't want it to, but whatever. Okay, I find them, not that particular brand, but the reptilians, there's some kind of holographic suit and or regular suit that they can put on. And this is not outlandish because the British actually premiered this in a solid form as a vase. There was some place over in England in one of their museums where you had a sonic version with tactile response, by the way. Got that? With tactile response, with coloration. Interesting?
Well, now,
Wait
we
a
were
minute, you
just
could
told,
they have the base, if I may, you have the real base over here, you have the bogus base over here. You couldn't touch the real base, that was locked behind someplace, but you could see it. And you had the bogus base, the pretend base, that was sonic with a vibratory tactile response that you couldn't tell the difference between the two.
yeah.
And what they've
Now,
done is they
let me ask
made
you this.
it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Let me ask you this. We were just told that number one, the reason why
Yes.
one is there've been a whole series of earthquakes in the U.S.
Right.
and fires coming out from the
Yeah.
underground, is that the underground bases are being, especially one under Denver Airport, are being dismantled by tactical nukes by the quote white hats in the U.S. government. Do you have any feedback to give to that, or any knowledge?
I have not looked at it. See, here's my problem. I'm one man. I have a couple of people that work with me, incidentally, to some extent, but most of what I do myself. I
Yeah,
have some help, but it's like look, it's actually humorous in a sick way. Everybody wants to give me a lab, give me all teams and make me the center of you do this, you do that, you do the other thing, right? I can't get it outside of going to work for them, and I will not work for them because I don't want blood money. And if I do that, I'll end up dead anyways because I'll probably end up one of their clones. And I'm not being funny, I'm not laughing. And I've met those, and what I wanted to tell you too, the reptilian with the type of apparatus I just described, if you look at a man's eyes, if you get to a certain point, spiritually or whatever, you'll be able to see, and you can see the vertical slits. Somebody made a thing about going back to like the 1890s forward, looking for that feature in all sorts of photographs. And I'm a guy, okay, I look at girls. Sometimes I've looked at pornography. I'm not going to pretend I'm not, I am something I'm not. But I've seen it in all venues, is what I'm trying to tell you. It is real, it is there. Look in a person's eyes. And sometimes if they get discombobulated, upset or something, which they can, it'll come out. Okay? Sometimes if you get good enough at it, it'll come out. The other thing about it, I want to point something out to you. These guys have been playing without genetics forever, right? The funny thing of it is, we were the ones that originally had the ultraviolet vision. They did not. Okay? And I'm going to share with you a discovery that I made when I painted the squaring of the circle. Okay? You always put something when you start on a titanium base if you're dealing with oils, a titanium white. All right? And what I discovered is if you have a titanium white background on something, which is the base that you use when you paint an oil on a canvas, and you put it into the sun, it reflects into the ultraviolet. Bugs and reptilians and birds and all of it, many, okay, see in the ultraviolet. They used to see like we do, and then we became them vision-wise, and they became us. And what's interesting, isn't it? The other thing that's interesting about that, what I came to realize, right? People who are colorblind, okay, and I actually put this in my first book, all right, which I never released because the mathematics and other things that are in there, okay, the colors that they are colorblind with align with the colors of the stars. You get that? And the stars come in actually 4 different colors. One is actually not a color. One is green, which is the oxygen burn. One is what we're used to. Our star is actually blue-white, actually closer to white, but the range is usually blue to white. And the other is red-orange. Okay, the Milky Way stars, right, are mostly all red-orange. Red-orange is the color of, red in particular is the color of the predator as to what it wants to look at, because that's your blood. The blue-white is what we're used to, and that's for the herbivores, which we are naturally. Okay? What happened was I was actually at one point, they want to convert to being herbivores for what I've done, because I shut off their meat supply, so they're shutting off ours on a lot of it. Because of, let me explain what I did. You mind? I said I did Sun Tzu.
I think that this is because you make statements that are normally outside of the capacity and realm of our normal human thinking, like I shut off their meat supply.
Right.
So to the extent that you can explain and give more context on these statements and on your actions, I think people will understand you more, and it'll advance the whole situation. So please do.
Okay, the Chinese system is set up as to an area for the emperor. This is the sky, the Milky Way, etc. An area for the emperor, which is the purple area. Then you got a commerce area, and I'm going to guess they don't actually spell it out. The other part would probably be military. Okay. And what I did is, okay, Sun Tzu, if you want to do something, the first thing you want to do is you don't want to attack where they are, where the military is. You want to attack where they're not. So you attack their commerce as opposed to anything else. Does that make sense to you? So you cut down this supply so they can't resupply their military. I actually had somebody come to me who had just been made an admiral from the other side. He was there to threaten me and tell me how he was going to kick my ass. And he said he had 1 million men under arms with spacecrafts and the rest of it. And I looked at him. Well, I didn't look at him. I talked to him. I listened to him. I talked to him many times before, sometimes by phone, whatever, right? And I laughed, not because I was, it was actually humorous. And the reason was my first sortie, with what I call the battle of the judges, with the 2 places that I talked about before, the giraffe, the second star, and the what do you call it? What am I talking about? The Big Dipper, second star, a Great Bear, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, I lost 5 million men. Okay, so he's talking, he's got 1 million men. So I could stand the heat of losing that. After that, I was very sad. I was bummed out and the rest of it, right? So I determined that I was never going to go through that again. So, oh, by the way, the basis of what I was just saying to you is you always attack where they're not. You don't, Sun Tzu, right? You don't attack where they are. In other words, where's your weakest defenses? Go in and hit whatever the heck their material. What is it? War is all about denial of material. Yes? Just what's happening to us right now is to what Trump has done. Okay, as a matter of fact, the other day I understand you can't buy a new refrigerator because you can't find a new refrigerator because the ones that were made in the United States are not there anymore. And all the ones that were repair parts are not there anymore because nobody's making anything, nobody's shipping anything. Everything is for the simple reason there's no reason for what he did. But of course there's a reason. He set up and did. Anyways, okay, so anyways, what was I saying? The thing about don't mind me, let's see. Oh yeah, the piece about, what the heck is it? The world stuff with the invasion and the attack. Oh yes, I know what it was. What I did. All right. I put together a system, and what it was, okay, when you have a whole universe, and you do a call to arms across the interlocking trees of a universe or a multiverse, it's like, I always like to say, there's a key for every lock. Okay? The key thing is integration. So basically, you have where you can outproduce him because you can have anything you want. So as soon as you have a problem, that has an answer to that problem. The question next is, because you're talking large numbers. So what I said was, okay, the best way to avoid getting hit is don't be there, right? So if you're in a firefight and you don't want to take a hit, the best way to do that is, if you're a multidimensional being, you want to randomly select what dimension you're popping in and out of and paint all your subjects, your targets, before you go in. Everybody gets one shot, one kill. So now you're all snipers. You open a portal, you flash, you're out. And you leave, and anybody who wants to follow you, you leave little presents that follow home if they survive. And you give them a time frame, and they target whatever comes in, tries to come in after you. And I've been very successful. Their ability to, I actually put one other thing in there. Because source is the greater range of all things, okay, and I changed the law as well, they can't get target lock. So the worst troops you can possibly have are troops that will watch everybody around them. You always keep a couple left to report back as to what happened. And the reason is their, dissension, revolt, etc., among their own troops, because they're never getting hit, because they're never getting target lock, is sky high. It's about 10% on average. And they all want blood, and they never get blood. But my job is not to allow our guys to die. My job is to make them die. And I do. I don't fight like a U.S. general, where I'm trying to get points by killing my own men, because that's the game, to kill the human. I fight to win. I was going to say expletive, these people. We're not the same at all. You see the difference? MacArthur was my favorite general because he made them go through hell to get to him. I make them go through hell to get to me. You see the difference in philosophy? So they're mad blood, and I remember the word I want. Insurrection. Once you have troops that have faced insurrection, there isn't much you can do with them except kill them, and then you're adding to my stockpile as to what I want. Because you can't have them around, because what happens? They undermine everybody else that they're exposed to. The guys on my side of the table, they're not unhappy. The guys on the other side of the table, oh man, they're not happy. I call it flashing in and flashing out. You see the difference in style? You understand the expression on your face. You go, they hate my guts, but they're afraid to touch me. And that's why I'm alive. And if they do, I can accept. Hey, look, son of a, never mind, we won't go there. They will, if they're unhappy now, it doesn't get better. You see the.
Yeah. Well, we're about 12 minutes away from the 2-hour mark, which is the mark where that's about as
Right.
much as any one person can take at any one sitting. And
Right.
I'm very concerned, and this was a mark of our conversation, because
Yes.
the very real concern about the axis shift due to the Three Gorges Dam, because it's not in the literature, it's not in the people's consciousness.
I
It,
know.
it's being suppressed, and
I
yet,
know.
according to you, China is building islands in the
Another
Pacific,
one.
not for defense purposes, but to hold back the water of the tsunamis. So what do you let's get
That
back
real
to that
quick?
conversation, and what do you think we should do to begin to
It
alert the
has to
world?
be unloaded very slowly, and it has to be unloaded immediately. Okay, or it's going to be, or it has to be broken. It has to be. You cannot allow this to continue. It'll probably revert if you let it slowly unload. Okay. Other than that, all right. One of the things I do in the book is I give you a way to rebalance the planet. Okay, and basically because this thing could go into a pitch-pole motion. You understand that, yes?
Okay.
You understand pitch-pole, in other words, erratic, which would be really bad. All right. My understanding is they've done this at least maybe 8 to 10 times before. They shifted each time. They've been doing this to us for a long time. So we got a chance now to maybe, actually not maybe, we have to stop it. All right. We also have to do the weather stuff too, which that's another topic for another day. All right. But that, we need to know where these people are flying out of, and we have to blockade any supplies. We have to do whatever the heck we have to do. It has to stop. You understand what I'm saying? It has to stop. Okay, you use resources incorrectly. In other words, putting anything into solar energy at this point is a joke. Understand why, right? They're clouding over the sun, so you're not going to be able to use it. All right. I was down the Cape, and I saw coming into a cove. What do you call it? They were moving clouds around. Okay, part of the thing, okay, you know what diamagnetics are and all that good stuff, where you can take a material and you put it into the air, and you can to move the material that actually is the air. As to okay, using, imagine if you will, each corner of the extended rectangle. Now, a RF wave is actually a corkscrew. They're using this technology on 4 corners to make box cars. Okay. And so I wrote an article about it. I haven't published it. They're making box cars, and I saw this, all right, in our atmosphere to move heat. And this is how they're moving it, besides using straight radiation in mass. You see the point? So they can move the heat over the water, and every time you do that, if you can increase the temperature of the water, which they were doing too, like in the North Pole, if they can get the North Pole air currents to meet and ocean to meet the South Pole, you're going to have winds up to 600 to 800 miles an hour. And box, what do you call it, stick construction is going to come apart like forget it. It's just anything on the surface, nothing is going to stand up before this. You understand what I just said? Nothing. You see why you don't get it? And I've seen this technology myself personally in operation on the, what do you call it, being able, I swear to God, it was about maybe, I don't know, 600 feet or more, a little bit more above my head. It was going by like boxcars. It was like, boom, 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 boom. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. But they got it, and they did it. And I understand how it works. I understand enough about electromagnetics. I took one look and I go, oh crap, you got to be kidding me. And this is how they're doing it. That and the HARP. And what it is if they do it over water, if they can get the water up warmer, every 1.5 degree Fahrenheit is a 10x in terms of storm activity and energy. You understand what I just said? Yes? This was published in Science News back maybe about 20 years ago. You see the problem? And I also know how they did the stuff with the, we're over the top, we must be, what do you call it, with the electromagnetics of the planet. And I believe I can probably fix that too, but it's going to take some work and it has to stop. And to be quite honest with you, if you want to take the time, it's up to you.
Yeah, yeah. Look, we're going to have to do some of this in follow-on programs because we're out of time now. But let me ask you
I
this
get it. Go ahead.
This question directly because we're on May 10th, Mother's Day of 2020. Where does your run for the presidency of the U.S. in 2020 stand? Was that just something that you wrote at the start of this book, or is that part of what you're doing?
Okay, when it was the only, at the time, it was the only thing I knew to do. And what I found out, okay, look, can I tell you something? My information grows on a daily basis. Can you understand that? I have if given the time to do what I have to do when I'm not trying to do the basic survival is to meet my basic needs, I have revelations 2 or 3 times a week as to different things that are going on. Can you see that? How that might be? Okay, the question is, okay, I can play the survival game because what the thing did basically, okay, what the divorce did, it basically left me homeless, and I didn't realize until it was too. Because what I was doing was, okay, I have a library and I want to add to. And I call it the end of the world. Actually, I don't want to call it the end of the world library. Basically, what it is I collected handbooks over the years for the most part. Optics, everything. Lubrication, heat pumps, you get an image here. Hardware, thermodynamics. I read a lot of it, not all, but I collected it. Can you understand why I would do this? Does it make sense to you? Look, you can't, what I have, you can't even buy anymore. Do you understand that? And if it comes up, they don't, okay, a lot of people are throwing it in the trash. And what I want to do is I want to form a city of some sort or a lab of some sort. I want to get older men and younger men, and I need to train them all. I need to train them in the mathematics. I need to train them in all sorts of different stuff, and I need to keep the cockroaches out. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because, so, okay, I'm seeing,
yeah,
pardon?
Yeah. So you want to form a community that is working at a multi-dimensional level. That's basically
right. What you're saying. Right. I want a city, and we need a number of them. And I want to duplicate the knowledge across, so if one gets wiped out, it's still the others. And I want a lot of them all over the place. Does that make sense to you? So that these guys don't make it easy for them. And I think we're going to have, look, we can't take the chance. We have to go underground. And the problem is, okay, it's going to keep getting colder as long as these guys are doing the chemtrails and the rest of it. And what has to happen is we have to take out the chemtrail stuff legally, if possible. Either way, it has to stop. Look, the weather is crazy. I know why it's crazy. You know why it's crazy. And they're not going to stop until we're dead. And they want us to, they're using this to take out our food supplies. There are ways we can still grow enough food to keep everybody fed. And one of my goals is I don't want anybody at all, ever, to go into the FEMA camps, period. If anybody's going into the FEMA camps, they should go into the FEMA camps, not us. You see that or you don't see it? They create, look, Astana, go look at Astana on the net. You know Astana? Okay, Astana, okay, through their Serbian embassy has asked me for my blessing. And I said, I do not bless criminal enterprises. Why would they do that if they didn't believe who I was? Because if I bless that, you know what that means? They get a walk. See the problem? I won't do it. They keep hitting me with MK Ultra women because they want a baby. Some of them are gorgeous. You understand why they want a baby? And I don't have a son. You see the problem? And it has to be an O positive woman. You see why? They're the original people.
Yeah, in fact, in our discussions, you were saying that one of their original plans in the false flag, in their depopulation of targeting the US is because the US is a very large community of O positives. Is that correct?
Yes. It's the last great white cache, is what it is. The A's are the Chinese, the B's are the Mongolians, and then the O negatives are, we already know, that's the docking station. But understand something about them. A lot of them are not bad. A lot of them do not want to be part of this. So what has to happen is they have to be gone through. Okay, what has to happen is the different types have to be given their own planets. Okay, look, the blacks, they're some of the ones that have been used the worst out of the whole situation. Although there are actually orange race down in Florida that lives underground that sometimes eats our kids. But the thing of it is, they're not accepted, and the military kills them every time they find them. But the thing of it is, it's like they're not bad. They wouldn't be in the spot if, look, we have to be kind to each other if we can. You understand what I'm trying to say? It solves a lot more problems to do that than it is to go the other way. What I did was I offered 20% to the different ones who came to our side in aid off of what their empire was as the bad boys. And then a point system for the military. And they could become their imprisoned workers forevermore. And if they didn't perform, they had the privilege of kicking the hell out of them. Somehow I can't feel bad, depending on how they act. You know what I'm saying? Look, this is not a pretty game. I hope you can understand. I do the best I can. I do things I don't always like. And by the way, I will tell you a couple of things about me. My battery is low at 15%. If this thing turns off, it's not my fault.
We're actually over the 2-hour mark.
I already knew that.
So let's wind this up because we'll do some follow-up programs. For those, we're with Richard Dunn, whose website is Interconnectedness of All Things. And there is a GoFundMe link, which is in the description here. For those of you who have been listening and who are drawn to support his mission, which is of a multidimensional nature, and he's tackling some very important issues, not the least of which is a threatened axis shift of the Earth caused by the Chinese Three Gorges Dam. And you can see that documented by his free book that you can download from his website, Interconnectedness of All Things. The book's name is Demand for Title of Earth and Adjudication, The Way Out to Stop Earth's Destruction. Are there any other kind of words that you'd like to leave?
Okay, there's a couple of things I'd like to say. I've been threatened on this by a Chinese spy who I had to, he called the FBI on me and I defeated him. I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what he did. I copied, the officer, they brought in a state trooper and an FBI agent to my house. I explained to them what was going on. They wanted me to go down and fly me down to see Obama. Obama would not see me over this. Interesting? Not nice, is it? And by the way, if you look in the book, you'll find out who Obama is and who he really is. And it's not nice. That's in the first 30 pages too. There's a lot of stuff, like I told you. People, who have looked at this, it's got depth. And like I told you, I've had people read it up to 5 times, and I'm not being funny. And a lot of people, particularly in the intelligence community that have read it, they don't read it once. And they go, aha, aha. And you'll smile and say, you know I'm not kidding. It's got depth. It's only 180 pages, but it's packed. I did the best I could. The format is a little unusual. It's almost like an academic, but you have to understand something. It's also a court case. And you can kind of understand when you get through that why I won. And because it really is definitive. This is not a game. We can lose. And when you asked me about running for the presidency, right? I think the country is in such a mess with the people that are in charge that it has to be completely revamped, and those people need not be there. And I'm not talking about doing bad things to their little bodies. I'm talking they cannot be allowed to be in the positions. We're paying for something that we're not getting, and we need a different government, and this isn't it. And I think what has to happen as a part of this is DC has to go, like I said, built out of a group of, Luciferians. What could go wrong? Really, what do you expect to go wrong besides everything? And you look around and you're wondering why? Really? I hate to say it, but that's what it is. We're doing it to ourselves because we want to make the day. And it's like, I always got in trouble with my ex for the simple reason I was looking ahead to see what was going on, trying to keep them alive. And I always used to say, I can't protect you from yourself. And the thing of it is, they wouldn't listen because they didn't believe in anything I was doing. And of course, now here we are. And we're discussing my work, which it's actually humorous for the simple reason, just off the record, kind of. The ex always wanted to write a book, read my book, said it was junk, and then stopped wanting to write a book. It's like, I will say one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, this book, the prior book was offered to the guys that did the Mothman Chronicles. They kept telling me that I had asked for a writer that Obama could not buy the book. And if you start reading this one, you'll understand why. And they kept telling me they had already, it was in there, right? And every time I'd read the contract, it was never in there. So the problem is, I would like to do something as to selling some rights to it. But the thing is, too, I also don't want to have a nuclear war, and I'm afraid to hand it over to somebody else, but I would like an income stream off the book. In the meantime, I believe that the price, if I can get money another way, I don't want to sell that book at all. Not because, but I need some kind of something where I need to protect my library so I don't lose. I need to have something in back of me where in case something happens, I don't want to go there. You know what I'm saying, right? That it goes to a good place, that it doesn't get lost, because there's things that I have you just can't get anymore. What's happening to the technology and we need a lot of these books too. It's part of the reason for the thing that I asked for the 5 million. Some of it is for books, and not just for me. There has to be a number of these libraries all over the place. Can you see this? Because the technology is disappearing. They don't want you to have it. You understand? And it needs to survive because we're going to need it. Am I making sense?
Yes.
And what has to happen too is the machines that are exiting the country and the rest of it have to be maintained and they have to be here. And the kids have to understand how to run machines. And not everything. Okay, here's what it is. Don't get this wrong. Men like machines and men work with machines. Women like pocketbooks, they like shoes. Which I'm not saying they're all that way. I don't want to sound sexist and the rest of it. But the thing is, okay, they don't see the necessity of the machine making a shoe or whatever. And I understand things can be printed, but if the electronics is gone, you don't be able to print this up that way. So you still need the baseline machines to go with it and the ability to power it. It has to be protected. And the knowledge has to be protected. Which I'm not saying the girls are doing anything wrong. I'm just saying you need both. Because you need to make.
There are very fine women engineers and women.
I agree, but okay, if you look at what in the section that you talked about the nuclear capabilities and the rest of it that I put in the book, and I talked about all the things that would be lost with the failing of society. Okay, in other words, you know, like you put the stuff in the eyes for the kids so they won't have syphilis in the eyes, so that they can live and not be blind if the medicine goes. You understand what I'm talking about? I make a list in there.
No,
Pardon?
exactly. And
The paper, the pencils,
these are subjects. These are subjects that we can cover in a follow-on interview.
Okay, fine. But there is a list in the book. I go through the whole thing. This is what I'm trying to tell them. You need the tools to make these things.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm after the girls. It's like both sides have to have what it is to make a family happy and keep everybody healthy. It's like, okay, in the 30s, they came up with cow to make everybody's bones stronger because they weren't, people lived shorter lives and the girls had a problem with their hips and everything else with the, the calcium, all right? Osteoporosis. So we need these things. When Trump kills off the cows and the rest of it, and we tell you go for the 1 or 2% milk, he's not doing anybody any favor. Obama the same thing. They're undermining the health of the nation because they're lying. You have to have it, or what happens to the bones of the child? And what happens when the baby comes along and takes the calcium out of the bones? I'll be quiet. we got my battery's gonna die anyways. I've done 9%. But
Okay.
if I make it, and it's not directed at girls, so I want to keep the girls alive. I like
trying to wind down the program.
I know. So much.
Okay. Well, you are indefatigable. We've been with the indefatigable Richard Dunn at interconnectednessofallthings.com. Until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Richard Dunn. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.